I walked into the garage and was stunned to hear my wife say I lowered myself by marrying him. He's mediocre at everything. I should have chosen James. Sister laughed into the phone. You can always find someone better after the mortgage is paid off. I calmly picked up the garbage bags and walked out without saying a word. 2 months later, my phone was ringing off the hook with 36 missed calls from her. It's strange how an entire life can fracture in under a minute. No ominous music in the background, no flash of lightning, no slow-motion realization, just a regular Wednesday evening. Trash duty, as always. 8 years of marriage. 8 years reduced to a single moment 3 weeks ago when everything cracked. I'm Nathan, 35 years old. That night, I was doing something mindless, hauling trash bags from the garage to the curb. Lauren, my wife, had gotten into the habit of sitting in her car when she needed privacy for calls. I'd noticed it before but never thought much of it. Normally, I would have grabbed the bags and left without a second thought. But that night, there was something in her voice that made me pause. A sharpness. A bitterness I hadn't heard before. I stood there, hidden by the half-open door, bags dangling from my hands, when I heard her laugh, a laugh I used to love, and then the words that hollowed me out. I know, Lauren said, her voice tight. I just thought he'd be more by now, you know? We're in our 30s, and he's still just there. Same job, same salary. When I look at what Ryan's accomplished, my blood ran cold. Ryan, the ex-boyfriend she had sworn was ancient history. Monica, her sister, crackled through the speakerphone, her laugh carrying easily to where I stood. I couldn't hear every word, but the pieces I caught were enough to scrape raw against my ribs. You can always upgrade after the mortgage is paid off, Monica said, laughing. Then Lauren dropped the bomb that plays on a loop in my head at 3 in the morning. I married down, she said, like it was an obvious fact. Nathan's mediocre. Average looks, average ambition, average, everything else too, if you know what I mean. Another round of laughter. I froze where I stood, the trash bags biting into my fingers, my body locked as if the floorboards had grown roots up through my legs. Have you ever been so blindsided that you literally cannot move? That's what it felt like, my mind screaming at me to run, to yell, to do something while my body refused to budge. Eventually, I forced myself to move. I grabbed the bags and left without a word, without a sound. Lauren never knew I was there. That night at dinner, she smiled at me like everything was normal, asked me about my day. I smiled back and lied. Same old. Have you ever had to sit across from someone who just gutted you emotionally and pretend everything is fine? It's a special kind of hell. The next 2 weeks turned into a brutal education. I started paying real attention, not the casual, trusting kind of attention you give when you believe your partner is still your partner, but the cold, clinical kind you reserve for strangers. I noticed her phone was always face down now. How she'd been working late twice a week for the past 3 months. The little smiles she'd hide when texts came in, smiles that didn't belong to me anymore. I'm not proud of what I did next, but honestly, pride had already left the building. One night while Lauren was showering, I picked up her phone. 3 guesses to crack the passcode, her childhood street number. Real Fort Knox level security there. There it was. Ryan. Dozens of messages. Nothing graphic, nothing you could wave in a courtroom, but plenty of I miss talking to you and if only things had been different. Mentions of coffee meetups that were probably anything but innocent. Then I found something worse. Bank statements for an account I didn't know existed. She'd been siphoning off money for over a year, around $20,000. $20,000. I snapped photos of everything with my own phone, hands shaking only slightly. Some internal switch had flipped. The shock was wearing off and in its place was something cold and mechanical. Anger, yes, but more than that, strategy. I didn't confront her. That's what she'd expect. Tears, yelling, drama? No. I was done playing the part of the mediocre husband. I started planning. First, I called my oldest friend Evan, asked if the spare room he always joked about was still available. Anytime, man, he said without hesitation. Then I called a lawyer, a woman named Anna who came highly recommended in a quiet divorce attorney forum I found online. She gave me the basics: separate your finances first. Document everything. Don't tip your hand. I spent hours that week making a checklist in my notes app titled simply Exit Strategy. Every night, I sat across from Lauren at dinner, smiling, asking about her day, nodding sympathetically when she talked about work stress. Every night, I told her, love you, before bed. Every night, a little more of me died inside. 13 days after hearing that conversation in the garage, I found myself sitting in my car a block away from Lauren's work. She was working late again. I followed from a distance as she pulled into the parking lot of a trendy restaurant downtown. He was already there, Ryan. Expensive watch, tailored suit, easy confidence. They hugged too long for it to be casual, and he kissed her cheek in that lingering way that says everything you need to know. I stayed in the car, snapping a few blurry photos with shaking hands. I felt like some low-budget private investigator in a bad TV drama. It wasn't my finest moment, but at least I wasn't the one sneaking around behind someone's back. That night, Lauren came home complaining about how boring the team dinner had been. "That sucks, babe," I said, kissing her forehead. I wish I could say I was calm through all of this, but I wasn't. I'd lock myself in the bathroom just to sit on the floor, trying to breathe. My appetite disappeared. I lost 6 pounds in 2 weeks because food tasted like ash. I stared at our wedding photos in the hallway and wondered if those two smiling people had ever really existed. At night, when she lay asleep next to me, I would lie awake staring at the ceiling, trying to piece together where it all went wrong. 8 years. Thousands of dinners, thousands of conversations, thousands of quiet moments. All built on something I had clearly never really understood. I started reading forums like r/surviving infidelity, gathering advice, learning from the wounds of strangers. Everyone said the same thing: don't confront too early. Don't let them hide money or rewrite the story. So I didn't. I played my role until the last possible second. Yesterday was the day. Lauren went to her spin class like always. And while she was gone, I packed 3 bags: clothes, personal items, important documents. I left my wedding ring on the kitchen counter. No note. Just gone. I drove to Evan's place, trying to explain everything through a tight throat. He didn't offer me advice or empty comfort. He just handed me a beer and said, "Spare room's yours." I turned off my phone after the first few notification buzzes. Missed calls. Texts. Voicemails. Lauren's panic building minute by minute. At midnight, I finally sent one text. "I'm safe. Please don't contact me for a while." Her response came immediately. "What's happening? Please come home so we can talk." I powered my phone off again. It's been 24 hours now. And for the first time in weeks, the suffocating weight on my chest feels a little lighter. Not gone. Not by a long shot. But lighter. I woke up the morning after I left with my brain still catching up to the reality I'd created. For a second, half asleep in Evan's lumpy guest bed, I almost forgot. Then it all came crashing back like a tidal wave. The garage, Lauren's voice, the cold detachment in her laughter. I stared at the unfamiliar ceiling, noting a crack shaped almost like a crooked lightning bolt. Felt fitting. My phone, switched back on for just a moment, was blowing up. 37 notifications. Mostly from Lauren, some from Monica, a few from mutual friends. I ignored them all. Instead, I made my first real move. I called my bank. Turned out I had good timing. The mortgage payment, $2,400, was scheduled to auto-debit the very next day. If I hadn't called, it would have drained our joint account and left me scrambling. I explained to the bank rep, a guy named Rob who sounded far too casual for how much my world was falling apart, that I was separating from my wife. He froze the joint account immediately and helped me transfer exactly half of the balance into a new personal account under my name only. It wasn't about revenge. It was about survival. About making sure I didn't get financially nuked by someone who had already emotionally gutted me. While I was on the call, Lauren texted, "The joint account is frozen. What are you doing?" I didn't respond. By noon, I changed every password I had: email, bank, cloud storage, streaming services. Anything that could be a vector for drama. I set up a P.O. box for my mail and arranged for all important correspondence to be forwarded there. Divorce Prep 101. I wasn't operating on emotion anymore. I was running on cold, mechanical instinct. That night, Evan came home from work to find me sitting at his kitchen table with my laptop open, a massive spreadsheet staring back at me. "What's all this?" he asked, pulling a beer from the fridge. "Inventory," I said, not looking up. "Shared assets, debts, retirement accounts, everything that needed splitting." It was like disassembling a machine I'd spent 8 years building with someone else. Painful, tedious, and absolutely necessary. Evan didn't ask if I was okay. Good friends don't ask obvious questions. Instead, he sat down across from me and pulled out a second beer. "You want pizza?" "Yeah," I said. "Yeah, I do." The first week after leaving was a blur of logistics. A meet with the lawyer in person, go over strategy. Set up an emergency savings fund. Cancel the joint credit cards. A list everything valuable that was still technically in the house. Anna, my lawyer, emphasized one thing again and again. Don't let your emotions drive your decisions. Stay strategic. I clung to that advice like a lifeline. Week 2 shifted focus. Evan's garage had a basic home gym, a squat rack, some free weights, a beat-up punching bag. Nothing fancy, but it didn't need to be. I started small. 10 minutes on the bike. Light lifting, stretching. The physical pain matched the emotional pain in a weirdly satisfying way. Muscles burning, heart racing. At least it was a hurt I could control. It felt good to be doing something, anything that wasn't about Lauren. Meanwhile, Lauren's messages were evolving. The early ones were angry. You can't just disappear. This is insane. Then came the concern. Everyone is worried. Please let us know you're okay. Finally, the bargaining. Whatever's wrong, we can fix it. Please come home. I read them all. I answered none. She had no idea what I knew. No idea that I had pictures, screenshots, recordings. No idea that her image of me, passive, predictable, dependable Nathan, had been replaced by someone willing to walk away without a backward glance. I still needed to be cautious, though. Before I'd left, I'd installed a small, discreet camera in the living room. Legal, since my name was still on the deed. Questionable ethically? Maybe. Necessary? Absolutely. I needed to see if Ryan would slither his way into my house once I was gone. I needed proof in case Lauren tried to rewrite the narrative. 3 days after I left, I got my answer. I sat in Evan's living room, beer in hand, laptop open to the live feed. There they were, Lauren and Ryan, drinking my whiskey, the good bottle I'd been saving, laughing, touching. Later, they moved toward the stairs. I closed the laptop without watching the rest. I didn't need to see it. I already knew. For days later, Monica came over. She wasn't crying, exactly, but her face was twisted with stress. They talked for an hour about me. Poor Nathan. Had a breakdown. Left suddenly. So much pressure lately. Maybe work stress? Maybe depression? Lauren spun her story beautifully. She cast herself as the bewildered, abandoned wife. The victim. It was almost impressive. I sat in silence, watching her through the screen, feeling nothing. No anger. No sadness. Just confirmation. The life I thought we had was already dead. I was just the last one to notice. By day 10, I had a new routine. 6 a.m. wake up. 6:30 a.m. workout. 8 a.m. start work remotely. 6 p.m. virtual therapy session with Dr. Patel. 8 p.m. check house camera for updates. 10 p.m. attempt sleep. Dr. Patel specialized in betrayal trauma. She didn't push forgiveness or reconciliation. Instead, she helped me build mental habits for survival. Focus on what you can control. Don't ruminate on what you can't. And name your emotions, but don't drown in them. Slowly, the rage stopped dominating every waking thought. Slowly, the panic attacks became less frequent. I wasn't better, but I was becoming functional. Meanwhile, the camera showed a slow decay inside that house I used to call home. The bills piling up on the counter. Empty wine bottles multiplying. Ryan appearing less and less often. By the end of the second week, he was gone completely. On day 15, something happened that finally cracked Lauren's perfect narrative. I ran into Kyle, our old neighbor, at the grocery store. Completely accidental. He looked at me like he'd seen a ghost. Nathan? Man, where the hell have you been? Lauren's been telling everyone you had some kind of mental breakdown. I just smiled tightly and gave him the ultra-condensed version. Found out she was cheating. Left to save my sanity. Kyle's face morphed through shock, guilt, and then anger. I saw some guy over at your place, he muttered. Didn't realize, damn. I'm sorry, man. I clapped him on the shoulder. Not your fault. He promised not to say anything. But I knew how it would go. Poker night with the other neighbors. Loose lips. The truth would spread. Sure enough, 2 days later, the house camera caught Lauren screaming into her phone. Seth is telling people I cheated. That lying piece of. And there it was, the first crack in her story. The foundation she had built on lies was starting to crumble. And I didn't have to lift a finger. The thing about lies is that once they start to crack, they don't just crumble, they explode. After Kyle heard the truth, it was only a matter of time before others did too. Lauren's neat little narrative. Poor, abandoned wife, struggling to hold her life together, began to fall apart like a house of cards in a stiff breeze. The camera in the living room caught it all. Day 18 after I left. Lauren pacing furiously on the phone, gesturing wildly. She slammed the phone down so hard it bounced. Day 20. Monica stormed into the house, her voice high-pitched and sharp even through the muted feed. I couldn't hear every word, but I caught enough. You said he was unstable. You didn't say he had proof. Proof. That word settled over me like a warm blanket. I didn't need to say anything. Reality was doing all the work for me. Meanwhile, Lauren's financial situation was unraveling just as quickly. The bank had sent the second notice about the missed mortgage payments. The pile of unopened mail on the counter grew fatter every day. Ryan, the so-called upgrade, hadn't been seen on the feed in over a week. Typical. By day 23, the house, once so meticulously kept, looked like a place abandoned after a hurricane. Dishes in the sink, empty bottles of cheap wine, stacks of laundry piling up. It was surreal to watch from a distance, the slow-motion collapse of the life we'd built together. Or rather, the life I thought we'd built. I wasn't sure what I was waiting for. Exactly. Maybe some acknowledgement. Maybe some sign that she understood what she'd lost. But it didn't come. Instead, I got a surprise phone call. Not from Lauren, from Monica. I almost didn't answer when I saw her name flash across the screen. Curiosity won. Hello, I said cautiously. There was a long pause. Then Monica's voice, oddly softer than usual. Nathan, you need to talk to Lauren. This has gone too far. She's not eating. She's not sleeping. She's a mess. I said nothing. Monica barreled on. I know you think she betrayed you, but it's complicated. People say things they don't mean all the time. I actually laughed. A short, genuine laugh I didn't even try to hide. Actually, Monica, I said calmly. People are most honest when they're venting. Thanks for confirming it. Silence on the line. Then a small, defeated, oh, exactly. I hung up without another word. That call shifted something. Within hours, Lauren's messages shifted, too, from frantic to desperate. I understand now. Please, we need to talk. I'm so sorry for everything you heard. It wasn't what it sounded like. Please, Nathan. 8 years deserves at least a conversation. For the first time in 54 days, I replied. Nothing to talk about. Divorce papers are coming. Sign them. She called immediately. I declined. The next blow came not from me, but from the bank. A foreclosure warning arrived. Apparently, Lauren had burned through her secret $20,000 savings trying to keep up appearances, but not to pay the mortgage. The house, our house, was slipping away. The camera caught it all. Lauren pacing the living room, clutching letters in shaking hands, crying. Frantic calls that went unanswered. Ryan, predictably, was nowhere to be found. Day 60, a Friday. The server finally managed to catch Lauren at work and officially hand over the divorce papers. That evening, the camera showed her coming home, slamming the door and throwing the envelope across the room. Then she collapsed onto the floor and cried for nearly an hour. I watched without satisfaction, without anger, without much of anything, really. It was like watching the last few embers of a fire burn out. Just a quiet, sad kind of finality. Later that night, I did something I hadn't done in 2 months. I drove by the house, not to confront her, not to talk, just to see. It was late, nearly 11 p.m. The windows were lit. Lauren's car sat crookedly in the driveway, and next to it another car I didn't recognize. I parked a few houses down and waited, heart pounding against my ribs. 20 minutes later, a woman emerged, someone I recognized vaguely from Lauren's book club. Marion. Interesting. She didn't stay long. After she pulled away, I made a decision. I still had my key. Lauren had never changed the locks. I waited another 10 minutes, then slipped quietly up the driveway. Inside, the house smelled different. Stale wine, takeout containers, dirty laundry. It barely resembled the home I remembered. I moved quickly, heading straight for the living room. Unplugged the camera, tucked it into my jacket. I didn't plan to stay, but halfway to the door, I heard a soft gasp from the staircase. Lauren, standing there in an oversized t-shirt and sweatpants, hair unwashed, eyes puffy from crying. For a long moment, we just stared at each other across the ruined wreckage of our shared life. "You look different," she whispered. I just nodded. 2 months of working out, eating better, sleeping, it had changed me. Physically, yes, but more importantly, internally. She took a step down. I took a step back. Then she said something I didn't expect. "I know you heard me that night," she said, voice trembling. "In the garage." I said nothing. "And I know about the camera," she added, almost in a whisper. "Marion helped me find it last week." I waited. "I deserve all of this," Lauren said finally, her voice cracking. "Every bit of it." There was no pleading. No excuses. Just a simple, broken admission. I didn't feel triumphant. I just felt tired. As I turned to leave, she called out again, voice catching. "I know I have no right to ask anything of you. But can we talk? Just once. Before the lawyers take everything over." I looked at her, really looked at her, for the first time in a long time. This wasn't the woman I married. Maybe she never had been. Still, part of me, the part that had loved her once, recognized that this was the closest thing to genuine I was ever going to get from her. "Coffee shop on Main Street," I said finally. "Tomorrow. 2 p.m. Come alone." Her face flickered with something like hope. I didn't return it. I stepped out into the cool night air without another word. As I walked to my car, my phone buzzed against my leg. 16 missed calls, just catching up from earlier in the day when the signal had been bad. 16. Full circle. I slid behind the wheel, started the engine, and pulled away without looking back. Tomorrow, I would sit across from Lauren for the first time in 61 days. And this time, I would have the upper hand. Finally. I arrived at the coffee shop 30 minutes early. Not out of nerves, that part of me was long dead, but out of strategy. I needed time to pick a spot, corner table, back wall, clear view of the door. Control the environment. Control the conversation. I'd been coming to this place almost every morning for the past 2 weeks, trying to build some kind of new normal. The barista already knew my order: black coffee, no sugar. Simple. Predictable. Safe. At 1:58 p.m., Lauren walked in. 2 minutes early. She had always been punctual, one of the many little things I'd loved about her before everything crumbled. I watched her hesitate at the entrance, scanning the room until her eyes landed on me. She looked smaller somehow. Loose clothes, no makeup, hair pulled back messily. The polished, put-together version of Lauren I'd known for years was gone. She walked over slowly, clutching a thick manila folder to her chest like a shield. "Nathan," she said quietly, almost like a question. I didn't respond. Instead, I reached across the table and tapped the voice recorder app on my phone, leaving it fully visible between us. She glanced at it, nodded once. No arguments. No protest. Fair enough. She sat down without ordering anything. Her hands shook slightly as she opened the folder and pulled out a mess of documents, financial statements, mortgage papers, credit reports. But she didn't start there. Instead, she talked. Softly. Calmly. Almost rehearsed, but not insincere. She told me she'd been in therapy 3 times a week for the past month. Not because someone told her to. Not because of me. Because she realized she didn't even like the person she had become. She traced the beginning of the end back 2 years when I turned down a promotion that would have meant relocating across the country. I felt stuck, she admitted. Trapped. But I never said it. I just started resenting you instead. Instead of communicating, she reconnected with Ryan. It was just messages at first, she said, voice cracking. Then coffee. Then more. She didn't sugarcoat it. Didn't spin a fairy tale. Ryan hadn't been some grand love affair. He had been an escape hatch. Listening to her talk, I realized something surprising. I wasn't angry anymore. Not at her, anyway. I was angry at the version of myself who had accepted so little for so long. When Lauren finished speaking, I pulled out my own folder. Laid it on the table between us. One by one, I slid the photos across to her. The blurry shots of her and Ryan at the restaurant. The screenshots of their messages. The bank statements showing her secret account. Her hands trembled as she flipped through them. Then I pressed play on my phone and let her hear the garage conversation again, the night it all ended for me. "I married down, he's average everything." She flinched like I'd hit her. But she didn't deny it. Didn't make excuses. When the recording ended, we sat there for a long moment in silence, surrounded by the hum of strangers living their ordinary lives. Finally, Lauren spoke. "I know there's no fixing this," she said. "And I'm not asking you to." She pushed a few papers across the table, a proposal. She agreed to sign the divorce papers without contest. Agreed to sell the house and split the remaining assets fairly. Agreed to take full responsibility for the affair in writing to eliminate any potential complications. In return, she asked for 3 things. 60 days to secure new housing. A fair split of what little we had left. 1 final private conversation. No public shaming. No revenge plays. I read the proposal carefully, then set it down. "It's fair," I said. She blinked as if surprised I wasn't going to argue. "But I want complete financial transparency from here on out," I added. "No more hidden accounts. No more surprises." She nodded immediately, almost gratefully. As we were wrapping up, she slid 1 more item across the table, a handwritten letter. "Don't read it now," she said quietly. "Whenever you're ready. Or not. Your choice." We stood up. No hug. No tears. Just 2 people acknowledging the end of something that had already died a long time ago. We left separately. The next 2 months were pure administrative hell. Selling a house in foreclosure wasn't like some HGTV special. No bidding wars. No excited young couples fighting over granite countertops. Just desperate price cuts and cold-eyed investors picking over the bones of what had been a life. We sold at a $32,000 loss. Split the remaining debt. I took a loan against my 401k to cover my half. Lauren borrowed money from her parents, who, according to mutual friends, were less than thrilled once they learned the full story. Closing day at the title office was awkward but mercifully short. When it was done, Lauren handed me a small box. Inside was my grandfather's watch, the one heirloom I'd forgotten to grab when I left. She'd had it cleaned and the strap replaced. I didn't know what to make of the gesture. Still don't. For months later, I moved across the state. New city. New job. New apartment. Not running away. Just starting over somewhere that didn't have memories lurking around every corner. Evan threw me a small going-away party, just a few friends, some takeout, cheap beer. At the end of the night, he pulled me aside and handed me an envelope. It was the rent money I had paid him for staying at his place. He had saved every penny. "New Start Fund," he said simply, clapping me on the back. "Good friends don't need big speeches. The new apartment isn't much, 2nd floor, tiny balcony big enough for a chair and a cheap table. But it's mine. Mornings I sit outside with coffee, watching people rush to work, building new routines, slowly stitching together a life. Work is stable. I even got a small raise last month. Nothing flashy, just quiet proof that Lauren's words had never been a reflection of my worth." About 2 months after the coffee shop meeting, I finally read Lauren's letter. It wasn't the sobbing apology I expected. It was reflective. She wrote about therapy, about realizing how much her parents' toxic marriage had shaped her expectations. About recognizing that she had sabotaged something good not because of me, but because of her own unresolved demons. The last paragraph stuck with me. "I know we can't go back. And honestly, we shouldn't. But I want you to know the person who said those awful things about someone who loved her, that's not who I want to be anymore. Not for you. For me." I didn't respond. Some doors stay closed for a reason. Last week, something unexpected happened. I ran into Marion, the same Marion who had once helped Lauren find my hidden camera at a bookstore. The conversation was normal. We talked about books, travel, getting older, how strange your 30s can feel when everyone around you is either settling down or falling apart. Not once did she mention Lauren. As we said goodbye, Marion asked if I'd want to grab dinner when she was back in town next month. I said yes. Not because I'm looking for anything serious. Not because I'm ready to trust again. Just because it felt good to say yes to something. It's been 6 months since I stood in that garage with trash bags in my hands and the ground falling out from under me. 6 months of dismantling an old life, brick by painful brick. 6 months of quietly rebuilding something new. Most nights now are uneventful. Dinner. Gym. Netflix. Texts with friends. Little decisions that are mine and mine alone. And maybe, just maybe, that's the real victory. Not revenge. Not dramatic redemption arcs. Just peace. Small, quiet peace. For the first time in a long time, I'm living a life that feels like mine. And that's enough.